So, yes, it's time for some more hell yeah. We're going to start on page 181. Yes, this is where we're stopping. Okay, let's see here. Now, my eyes hit it a minute ago. She hit the speed dial number for her cousin Daisy. Daisy, I miss you, she said when she heard the familiar voice on the other end. Hey, girl, come see me. Guess what? I'm pregnant, Daisy said. You rat, you beat me to the altar and now you get to have a baby before I do? Is this payback for totaling that old junky car of yours? Kathy asked. I told you I'd get even, but it took me 12 years to do it, Daisy laughed. Morning sickness? Not a bit. Now I am jealous. You get the handsome dark-haired cowboy, the ranch, the job you love, and a baby with no morning sickness? Have you been kissed by the good luck fairies? I believe I have. Speaking of babies, Chigger last night called. She's due any day. I'm coming down there when the baby's born. Now that's the best news I've ever heard, Kathy shouted. Daisy giggled. Don't bust my eardrum. It'll be next week probably, but I'm waiting until she calls to start that way. I've already got a whole basket of full, cute little pink things I bought for the new baby. I'll make a trip to the baby store and get my present ready. There's so much I've got to tell you, but I'm not doing it over the phone. If you're coming next week, is Jared coming with you? Yes, and we'll be staying out at the ranch with Garrett. Page 182. Suppose you already knew that. He's plumb smitten by Angel, Daisy said. Yes, I do. You could stay here. I'll give you and Jared my bed, and I'll sleep on the sofa, Kathy said. Travis could stay at home a few nights. Lately he'd shown up at her door almost every night. It started with ice, no water, a tornado, and lately just to talk for an hour or two. They'd share what they had been doing all day, kiss a couple times, then make out on the bed. But if Daisy was coming, he could sleep in his trailer. Thanks, but Garrett has lots of room, Jared. And Garrett will be all involved in the ranch business, so we'll be free to spend the days together. Now to get up, clean that honky-tonk up, go shopping. I'm hearing through the grapevine that Travis Henry has his eye on you, Daisy said. We'll talk about that when you get here, Kathy said. Yes, we definitely will. I sure miss that place. Goodbye. Goodbye, and tell Chigger I wouldn't mind having that baby a few days early. Kathy threw the covers off the bed and danced around the room like a sugared-up 6-year-old after a visit to Grandma's house. That was page 182. We're going to 183. Kathy pulled her arms from her leather jacket and let it fall back on the chair. What brings you to the Thurber today? Had to check on the well out at Jessie's place. It's looking promising, Amos said. And if it comes in good, does that mean you'll be buying mineral rights to the other property? Don't know. Never count my chickens before they hatched. I'm still working on a deal up with the north. Depends on where I can make the most money, and I've been hearing things about Angel and Garrett. You got anything on that? She held her breath, and when he said he'd been hearing things, afraid he was about to ask a report on her and Travis. Ask Angel. I will, but first I'm asking you if I need to take care of the crew to Alaska. Is she going to come with me, or has Garrett McElroy stole her heart? Angel is a damn fine engineer, Amos. If she decides to stay in Texas with him, put in her charge of the wells, then this area, she can handle it, even if she is young and green. She's got a nose for oil, and she's not afraid to get her hands dirty, Kathy said. That's good advice. I wish you'd sell the honky-tonk and come work for me. You got a nose for oil, too, only in a different way, and you keep your fingers on the pulse of this staff. Name your price, and I'll double it, he said. The tonk is not for sale, she said seriously. I'm not talking about the beer joint. I'm talking about your salary. No, thanks. I left the line of work behind me. I'm just doing you a favor. Answer me a question. How did you get your hands on my resume? I called Daisy. She knew where you worked, so I called them, and then they said I was interested in hiring you. They faxed the resume with enough letters of recommendations to make the president of the USA sit up and take notice. No, thanks, still, she said. Amos waved at someone coming through the door. Well, look who's here. Hey, Travis, come on in here and join us. I'll buy you dinner if you haven't eaten yet. He pulled up a chair beside Amos right across from Kathy. Haven't had a bite since breakfast, and that weren't anything but a donut on the run. I've been out on this site and came in to get cleaned up and grab a few hours of sleep before I do my shift at the honky-tonk. What are you doing here then? Amos asked. Coming back from a fast run to Stevensville. We looked everywhere for that V-belt and couldn't find one, so I ran into town, bought a dozen. Thought I'd grab a burger before I took them out of here, and they won't need them today, but we will find them the first of the week. He didn't admit that he spotted the red caddy as he drove past and made an illegal U-turn in the middle of the road and drove back. Don't order a burger. Get the chicken fried steak, Amos said. Travis looked doubtful. Any good? I hate a bad one. Amos leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms over his chest. Tell him, Kathy. Best you'll ever put in your mouth. Amos is paying, so give it a try. I'm a connoisseur of good chicken fry. So am I, Kathy said, and this place makes them almost as good as my grandma's, and honestly, honey, that's a compliment worth having. Amos got the waitress' attention and held up 3 fingers and nodded when her mouth coconut pie. In a few minutes she brought their salads with garlic bread. Amos dug into the salad. We were just talking about Angel. What's your take? You think she'll go to Alaska when I move the crew up there? Don't know. Ask Angel. Don't know if they'll raise Angus cattle in Alaska or if Garrett would want to relocate. That was page 183, 184, 185. Here comes 186. Pretty serious, is it? They don't know it yet, but serious. Keep her in this area and give her a shitload of responsibility. She's tough. She can handle it. Amos ate slowly, savoring every bite. What about ranching, husbands, babies, and the oil business all combined? He asked. She loves her job, and she's got enough energy to do it all. And you? Amos slipped the question in shyly as he kept his eyes on Kathy more than Travis. Give me the opportunity to move Alaska. I'll have my bags packed in 10 minutes. Only I want to get to the permanently, not only a 6-month turnaround. I want to buy a chunk of property and live there. The set of Kathy's jaw told Amos that she had no notions of living in Alaska. Ever been up there? Amos asked Travis. Oh, yeah. My first job as a petroleum engineer back before I signed with your company was mainly in that area. I did a 6-month turnaround in the Prudhoe Bay area and said if anyone ever said I had to go back there, I'd shoot myself first. Then I did a turnaround near Anchorage. Not right in the big city, but on the outskirts. Fell in love with that place. That is where you are negotiating, isn't it? Amos nodded. He didn't want Kathy to move to Alaska, and he wondered just how much Travis would like it there without her. That's page 186. Okay, we're going to page 189. Can I borrow your chair for half a minute? Kathy asked. He dragged it across the floor, then stood on it and clapped his hands twice. The place went silent. We're taking a vote. Usually Friday and Saturday nights, this new jukebox is what we listen to, but some of the customers have asked us to use the old one tonight so they can listen to vintage country music. How many of you want to hear that old country music that we have on Monday nights, and how many want to hear the new songs? Vote of hands, please, Kathy said. New? Dozen hands went up. Old? The place looked like a wave at the cowboy football game. The whoops and the hollers were louder than Gretchen Wilson's hell yeahs have been. The customers have spoken. Anyone who hates this kind of music is welcome to leave and let some of the folks outside in. She hopped down and plugged in the old jukebox, took a quarter out of her pocket, and she got on the night started with Tammy Wynette's Your Good Girl's Gonna Go Bad. That surprised me, Kathy said to Travis, and then when she was back behind the bar, not me, it's a new novelty, kind of like going back in a time machine. Remember when Barbara Mandrell sang about being country? When country wasn't cool. She was talking about me. Were you country when it wasn't cool? Oh, yeah, from my hat down to my boots. How about you? From birth. Cut my teeth on Hank Williams, Porter Wagner, and Dolly Parton. He filled another bucket and bottles of beer, shoveled the ice to the top of them. Me too. Grandma and Grandpa loved those old artists, and I bet my grandpa was still alive and he found out there was a jukebox that's still around. He'd be your best customer. Kathy took an order for 3 margaritas. Then how come you never heard of Marie Laveau? He ran a hand down her rib cage. Don't have any idea, but if you'd like to dance to it again, I'm game. She shivered. I believe that's harassment. It wasn't last night. After the hours of play by different rules, she said, yes, ma'am. Then save me a dance after hours. You asking or demanding? Luther claimed a vacated bar stool. Asking what? Did you say you'd go out with him, and did he end up being more than your good friend after all? The hag didn't do this one, did he? Seems like I remember Ray Price singing Silver Wings when I was a kid. I didn't say I'd go out with Travis yet, and I think you're right about Ray singing this song. So you listen to the old guys too, Kathy asked. You bet I did. Granny and Grandpa, Mama and Dad, and even my big brother loved country. Still do. Big brother, surely you mean in age, Kathy said. Both in age and size. I'm a midget compared to Harlan. He's 6'7", outweighs me by 50 pounds. What does he do for a living, wrestle or pro ball? He's a good football coach up in northern Oklahoma. He's got a good team there and usually goes to state, Luther said. Y'all seen Rissa? I wanted to dance and can't find her out there in the can of wiggling worms. She's usually here on Saturday night. Go shoot some pool with Merle. She looks like she could use some competition, Kathy said. Will you send her over there when she gets here? Luther asked. Travis nodded. Want a beer while you wait? That was page 189, 190, 191. Here comes 192, 193, 194. What can I say? When a book is good, it just draws me right in. Court of Cores, Luther said. At midnight, a few people left, and Larissa was one of the dozen that Tinker let inside. She went straight to the bar and got Kathy's attention and ordered a martini. Her black lace blouse was flowing sleeves with ruffles at the cuffs and white pearl buttons down the front. Luther's been waiting on you, Travis said. What happened to this place? There's 50 people out there just waiting for someone to leave so they can come inside. They're dancing in between the cars in the parking lot to the music that's coming out through the cracks. If they could get a bucket of beer, they'd probably be happy out there in the cold as in here, she said. Kathy set the drink in front of her. It's a fad. Next week we'll be lucky to draw 100 on the weekend nights. I wouldn't count on it, Larissa waved as she weaved through the noisy crowd to the pool table. She said something to Merle and nodded and pointed at the edge of the pool table. Larissa set martini beside Merle's beer, and Luther waltzed onto the dance floor into a couple old tunes by Charlie Pride, followed by a Bill Anderson ballad. Someone must have been tired of the slow songs, because the next one out of the jukebox started with Great Balls of Fire by Jerry Lee. That put everyone on the floor in a line dance. Luther showed Larissa the dance steps, and the second time everyone crooked their legs, slapped their boot behind them, and shuffled toward 2 steps. She had it down. She's a natural, Kathy said. Travis looked up from behind the beer section. Who? Larissa. She's only been coming in here a few weeks, and she's already got 2-stepping down. Look at her on that dance floor. She's good as Luther. Wonder what she did before she moved here. Maybe she ran a dance studio that taught ballroom dancing, Travis said. I have no idea what she did. She just showed up here one night. I thought she was one of those Hayes Radnor's henchmen, she said. Who's that? Travis asked. A woman reached across the bar and touched Travis on the arm. Hey, good looking, I'm Rhonda. I need 2 buckets of Millers and 2 pitchers of pina coladas. We just got in and we need to make up for lost time. Travis grabbed 2 buckets from under the counter and loaded them with the bottles and ice, while Kathy blended it with the 2 pitchers and put them on the trays with an empty pint jar. I love this music. How long you been here? What's your name? How come y'all ain't got name tags? Y'all open any other nights? Rhonda said to Travis. The honky-tonk's been here more than 40 years. I'm Travis, this is Kathy, and we don't need name tags, he said. Well, hot damn, we thought this was a brand new, only open on Friday and Saturday. Wait till we get back home and tell everyone what we done found. We love the old country music, she said. Hey, Brenda, come and help me carry this stuff. I only got 2 hands. Guess what? This place is 40 years old. Can you believe it? Larissa breezed through the swinging doors into the bar area. Luther is making the rounds, gathering up trays. I'll wipe them down and stack them up. You are getting low. 192, 193, 194, 195. Luther set 3-foot stacks of trays on the end of the bar. Busy night, ain't it? Keeping me on my toes for sure. Thanks, Kathy said. If the fad doesn't die out, I'll have to hire some extra help. Travis grabbed a clean tray and filled 4 quarts Budweiser. I'm your hired help. Don't be giving my job away. Honey, I'll let you help yourself to anything you want if you quit your job and work for me, Rhonda said. Rule is the hired help can't dance or drink with the customers, he said. I'll pay you big bucks, she winked. If you change your mind, there'll be 6 of us over there in the back corner for you who you can help all night long. I'll remember that, Travis grinned. Kathy slapped him on the butt with a wet rag. Stop flirting. Why, I can't flirt with you. That's harassment during working hours, and I do believe if I check the handbook that touching my butt is considered harassment too. I'll harass you, darling, any time of the day or night. Another woman flirted from the space Rhonda left. Sorry, boss says I can't, Travis said. Tell the boss to go to hell, honey. If I could take you home with me, I'd be chaining you up and never letting you out of my sight. Other than that, what can I get you? I guess a bucket of Coors. I can use the ice to cool off my hot little body, she said. Travis filled up a bucket, and the woman handed him a $50 bill. The woman leaned over on the bar and let the ice sliver down the 4 inches of her cleavage. Get that out for me, and you can keep the change. That's a lot of money, Travis said. It's melting fast, and it's a long way down there, she teased. Gotta pass. Here's your change. He laid the money on the table and looked down at the bar and the next customer. I'd have paid to let me get that ice, the man said. If you hurry, you might catch her before it's all melted, Kathy said. The tone was colder than the ice in the woman's boobs, Travis laughed. Kathy shot him a dirty look. I can't help it if they flirt. This is a different crowd than you usually have, he said. If you'd gone for that ice, I'd plan on breaking your fingers, so keep that in mind. Broke fingers couldn't have drawn beer. You keep that in mind. Don't you just love this sound? He changed the subject. The guitar music, drums, and steel were definitely old country. From the first guitar lick to the last note, it had an unmistakably country beat. Kathy was reminded of the song that Alan Jackson sang about murder on Music Row, and that in today's world the old singers wouldn't have a chance. Looking out on the crowd of the hootin' and whoopin' people, and she still wondered if it wasn't making a comeback. Maybe if it hadn't been murdered on Music Row, but just shot in the leg. Luther just kept Larissa on the dance floor through Buck Owens, Dolly Parton, Johnny Cash. When Bobby Bears started singing about Marie Laveau, Travis grinned at Kathy. 194, 195, 196, 197. She took his hand and did a couple of sexy bumps and grinds against his side. He laughed. It looked as if he'd been poleaxed. Shocked you, didn't I? She laughed. You broke the rule, he teased. Yep, I did. Some rules you just have to go out the window. Get ready for the next wave. The song sucked out the sweat of the room. They've got to have beer or we'll be sweeping them up dead bodies when they get clean up in the morning, she said. Where'd you get that, wee businesswoman? Travis' eyes glittered. You mean you're not going to volunteer to help me put things in order for tomorrow morning? No, ma'am, I'm not. I've got to be back at the rig site by 9 o'clock, and there's no way I'm waking you up that early. That's probably wise, she agreed. He hummed along with the Loretta Lynn song about about being someone's Kentucky girl. Kathy could be his Alaska girl, but the way her business was booming, she'd never leave that honky-tonk. My girl, when did that happen? I kissed her a few times. I haven't even made love with a woman, so why in the world do I think she's my girl, is what he's thinking. What are you thinking about? Kathy set the 6-Jack Cokes on the tray. And many times I've heard on these handles, I'm wondering whether we're going to run out of beer, how much you got in that cooler. He wasn't going to tell her that he'd been entertaining notions of her being his girl. There's enough to last until closing time. I may have to call the distributor and ask him to make an extra run on Monday to get through the first of the week. But right now we're in good shape, she answered. At 1 o'clock, part of the crowd called it a night, and Tinker let the rest of the folks who waited in the yards inside. They hit the beer for buckets and mason jars of beer, and fresh energy pushed its way into the dance floor. At 1:30 it thinned out, and at 5 minutes till 2, Tinker unplugged the jukebox right after Conway sang Lonely Blue Boy. A lady yelled, Oh, man, we only got an hour. Come on, an early Monday night. We'll open at 8, Tinker said. I'll be the first one in line if I have to camp out on the doorstep all night, she said. The place was empty at 2 when Tinker set his cooler on the bar, and for the first time since Kathy had been in the honky-tonk, it still had 2 unopened Dr. Peppers in it. Didn't have time to drink much, he said. It's just a crazy fad, she said. Busier than I've ever seen it. If it keeps this way, we might have to hire Travis or Larissa full time. I thought I saw those 2 men again tonight. They were out there in the parking lot, leaning on a car. Things were so busy I didn't get out there to put them going. I expect they're stalking Larissa because she left when they did too. He waved goodbye and left. Travis picked up 2 beers and headed for a table. What's going on with those 2 men? Tinker thinks that there are a couple of stalkers hanging around. At the first he thought they were looking at me, but now he thinks they're after Larissa. Don't know what or who she was before she came here. Maybe she knows them. She didn't tell him that she had an uncanny suspicion they were following her in the Walmart store or to the bank. That's 196, 197, 198. Here's page 200. And 201. So tell me, you're going to get that oil to come out of that ground in the allotted time. Are you really going to go to Alaska? He reached out and took one of the cups and sipped the chocolate. I hope so on both accounts. You ever been up there? She shook her head. I've seen pictures on the internet. It's not the same thing as seeing the place. You live a lifetime in Texas and see maybe 2 or 3 bald eagles. In Alaska, you'll see that many in a week. Lightning on the telephone poles looks like the king of the clouds, and the peace is unreal. He sat down in his rocking chair. To me, that place is peace, she said. He raised an eyebrow. A noisy honky-tonk? That's right. Peace is the condition of the heart, not the place the body abides. She didn't say that lately her heart hadn't known a moment's peace, or that the most nights she fell asleep wondering what it would be like to lie awake all curled up in his arms. Want to watch a movie tonight? He asked. No, I'm wiped out completely. I've got to get up in the morning and balance the cash register, then drop a deposit at the bank, so I'm ready for bed. On Sunday? I usually make my big deposit on Sunday. There's a night drop on the bank, so there's no big deal, but it takes a while to get it ready, and then on Sunday, I don't have to rush. So what's your day looking like tomorrow? We're on schedule, but I'm going to put in some hours on the rig. Want to go tomorrow evening for a dinner and maybe a movie, a real date? How much money you have in that pot? She teased. Enough to buy dinner and a movie, but I'll give it all to Luther if you'll go with me, he said. She nodded on her way to the bedroom. I'd love to. Good night, Travis. He carried both cups to the sink and rinsed them and then put them in the dishwasher. He thought he heard a vehicle moving slowly through the parking lot, but he was already half asleep and didn't want to leave his warm spot to check it out. That was 201. Okay, page 205. You reckon he'll settle down? Brad? Hell no, but she won't know it. He's a sneaky jackass. She forced herself to focus on the wall. Her eyes adjusted, and she realized her knees were bent and shot chains were from the cuffs on her ankles to those on her wrists. Her first reaction was to scream and fight. She arched back, and her mouth opened with a sting of cuss words that would fry slime on a frog's butt, then clamped it shut. You sure you gave her enough to knock her out for a whole day? I mean, I damn sure wouldn't want her to know who we are. She relaxed, and she was in the back of a van. Two men were talking in the front seat. The passenger was eating a hamburger and onion rings. The driver had a beer in his hand and took a swig every few minutes. But why was she there, and what did they want? Stop asking me questions, you moron. I'm smart enough to know just how much juice you gave a horse to drop them in the track. I just gave her enough to keep her quiet for the whole trip. Hell, she ain't going to wake up until sometime tomorrow. She'll wonder how in the hell she got from Mingus to Jefferson, Texas. Not that she'll know where she is. He wants her to think that she's in hell for a few weeks before he sweeps in there and rescues her. She won't just think it. She will be in hell in that place. When he comes to rescue her, she'll be so glad to see him, she'll marry him on the spot. That's what he's hoping for. His uncle... Let's see. So, I lost my spot. Okay, his uncle said that the next time he messes up, he's out the business, and he's got used to that big money. Remember when we were kids and he always said he was going to have an office with lots of pretty girls around him? Did his uncle really say that? He only had 6 months to settle down. If he didn't, he wouldn't be driving a horse of a woman to an old fishing shack. Her eyelids drooped, but she forced them open. Maybe they would keep talking and she could figure out what in the hell was going on. Hell would be heaven when she wakes up and finds herself in that old fishing shack on the bayou. Put that Larry the Cable Guy CD in the player. I could use a good laugh. This is boring damn right. If I'd known how far it was going to the godforsaken hellhole, I wouldn't have gotten over there. Kathy tried to get comfortable. At Larry the Cable Guy had two men golfing with his country comedy. Her legs cramped, yet if she tried to straighten them out, the metal cuffs would cut into her wrists. She held her eyes open until they were so dry that they hurt as bad as her legs. Finally, she couldn't do it anymore as her eyelids snapped shut, as the darkness closed in around her, and she repeated what they had said over and over. Jefferson, Bayou, Fishing Shack. Only 4 words. She had to remember them. That was 206 and 207. Okay, we're going to start at 210 now. I'm hoping to entice you to want to go pick up this book and read it. You won't regret it. Their names were Oscar and Duro. Evidently, Duro was the red-haired little piglet, and Oscar was the chubby one with bad breath that smelled like chewing tobacco and beer. I'm glad it ain't a mile down here. My arm's already sore from hauling that big ox of a woman around all night, Hamburger said. I hear you, Oscar. Stop using my name. She might hear it, and even if her name in her sleep, you moron, Duroc. Well, you just called me by my name, and besides, I'm not ignorant. I filled up that needle good, and she ain't going to hear crap until the way she's sleeping. Finally, they docked on the other side of the water and wrapped a rope around a rotting tree stump. It's your turn to get her arms, Hamburger said. I'd make it easier to get her in the cabin if she was up to loosen those chains. Ain't no way we're going to carry her up those stairs with all that bent backwards. Keep the cuffs on her feet and arms, and if she wakes up, then she couldn't get far before we'd catch her. and then give her some more of that stuff, Beer said. Was Oscar and Duro one and the same named Beer? Which one was Hamburger? She wanted to open her eyes, but she didn't dare take a chance at another dose of medicine, so she went completely limp. Hamburger fiddled with a chains. You get her up underneath the arms, and I'll get her under the feet. It ain't about 100 yards back to Brad's grandpa's old shack. We can do this, pretend it's two of them 100-pound sacks of deer corn. Kathy did not weigh 200 pounds. A fit of anger stiffened her body. Is she dead? Feels like rigor setting in. Brad will shoot us dead if she ain't alive in a week. Good God, did you give her too much of that horse tranquilizer? Kathy went limp as a wet dish rag. She ain't dead. She must have been having a nightmare. I don't guarantee my shots will make them all have sweet dreams. They just sleep. One man slipped his hand under her arm and grunted, while another pulled her to her feet out of the boat. Twice on the way to the cabin she almost fell. The next time Beer lost his grip on her arm and almost arched upward to keep from getting her any wetter, but relaxed that last minute. Crap, man, I can't keep this up. Trade ends with me, Beer said. You ain't nothing but a weakling. Lay her down and we'll swap. I'll be glad when this job is done. Next time Brad wants something done, he can do it himself. That's 210, 211. Here comes 212, 213, 214, 215, 216, 218, 219, and that's where we're stopping. She was only one with the cold, wet earth a minute before they picked her up again and trudged on toward the cabin, but it was long enough to chill the entire backside. She lolled her head to one side and opened one eye just enough to see what was ahead. She opened the outhouses that looked better than that place. Surely they weren't going to leave her stranded there for a whole week. If she got free, Durek and Oscar were about to find themselves cuffed to the porch post of that horrid-looking shack. She pictured them shivering in the nothing but their tighty-whities. As angry as she was, she might not even leave them that much to keep them from freezing. With their IQs, they didn't need to reproduce anyway. They were both panting when Beer kicked at the door open with his foot. They heaved her onto the bed. It squeaked and bounced twice with everything went quiet. Hamburger unlocked the cuffs for her arms, and Beer fiddled with the one for her legs. Kathy opened both eyes wide. Hamburger took a step backwards. Man, you better hurry. She's waking up too early, he said. She kicked as hard as she could, and was a second too late before she heard the click of the shackle snapping around her ankle. She connected with something because Beer grunted, squealed, and headed for the door in a bent-over position. Quicker than a gnat can blink, she swung hard with her right hand and then caught Hamburger in the nose. Blood sprayed all over her t-shirt and his shirt as she came fighting like a wounded mountain lion. Both men took out their front door with their heels. Her legs were rubbery and running was tough, but if it caught them, she swore she'd find the strength to kill them both. Hamburger fell in his knees and out in the yard beside Beer, who was rolled up in a fetal position, and in the morning was like a fire siren. Damn you, I told you to give her plenty of that horse stuff. Now look at us. She's liable to break that chain. Does that crap make a horse strong and mean like when it wakes up? Beer panted from his groans. Hamburger blubbered through a bloody nose. Hell if I know. I'd never stayed long enough to see how they come out of the crap. Let's just get out of here. I will soon as I can walk, you idiot. That woman is a hellcat. Brad is an idiot. She's going to kill him. Hamburger wiped his nose on his coat sleeve, but it didn't stop bleeding. Don't talk to me, Beer said with a high, squeaky voice. Kathy made it to the front door. The chain ran out like a short bungee drop. The forward motion came to an abrupt halt and sent her backward to land on the floor with a loud thump. You sorry some guns. Get in here and let me go, or I'll chew through this damn chain in two and beat you half to death with it. I'm going to kill you long before or after you chew that chain in two, Beer yelled through the blubber. Kathy looked around the room for something to fight with. All she saw was a bare mattress on top of metal springs on an old iron bedstand. If she could get Duroc and Oscar back in the house, she could smother them with the mattress or knock their heads against the bedstand until their brains looked like burnt scrambled eggs. She was sure God wouldn't even write her down in the sin of killing them in the little log book. He might even put a good gold star by her name. Two stained blankets were tossed on the floor on the back side of the bed. Maybe she could wrap them up in the blankets and beat them until they were cold with their bare fists. A toilet and sink were in the far corner with tattered muslin curtain for privacy. She eyed the rectangular cover on the back of the toilet. She could have heaved it like a discus at the first one through the door and flattened his face like a real Duroc hog. a chain attached to a thick shackle on her right ankle and was affixed to a pivotal eyeball on the floor. If she could pull it up on the floor, it would be a good weapon to use for a garrote. She grabbed it and pulled with all her might she could muster, but it didn't budge. That was 212, 213, 214. Duroc and Oscar were still out there in the yard, and it didn't look like they were too damned eager to come back to the house or get into the ring. The one curled up with still weeping and holding his under part. The other one was trying to stop the bleeding from dripping off his chin. She paced to get her legs back into working order. If it hadn't been for the medicine they'd pumped her into her, she would be able to kick Beer in the teeth. But she couldn't get her foot that high. That's why her foot landed so much lower. Once she got her muscles to stop trembling, she'd show them a thing or two. You ain't going to kill her. I am. Hamburger's voice grangled through his hand. It was cotton blood still flowing from both sides of his nose. I bet she broke my nose. I know my eyes. It is both black as hell. You big boys come on in, and we'll see who's dead when the bloodletting is getting over. Y'all ain't nearly as mean as when I'm awake. She rattled the chains. Go give her another one of those shots, Beer whimpered like a little 6-year-old girl. Hell no. Here, kitty, Kathy tormented him. We are going to leave you some food, but we could change our minds. We ain't coming back until late tonight, if we do decide to let you have something to eat. And you better be nice or you can starve, Hamburger said. You get close to me, I'll tear your arms off and eat it raw, she shouted. I told you we should have handcuffed her to the bed, Beer said. What the hell does Brad want with a hellcat like that anyway? I don't know, man. He might want to give it 2 weeks or even a hell of a month. It's going to take more than a week to soften her up. Y'all tell Brad that hell is about to crawl up his butt and fry its way all through the top of his head. She tugged at the chain, but whatever they anchored it with was under the house, didn't budge. She knows she heard us in her sleep, just like I told you. Damn, he's going to be mad. I ain't telling him nothing, Hamburger said. Me neither. I ain't scared of him, but I am that big old ox of a woman. He can take care of her all by himself when he gets here next weekend, Beer said in a raspy sentence. Let's go get some food and get it to her, and then get the hell out of Dodge until deer hunting season. You want that $100 he promised to give us next week? Hell no. Let's take off for Las Vegas for a few months. I got a cousin out there who cleans up bathrooms in a casino. He can get us a job there, Beer said. You think I can't find you in Las Vegas? I'll hunt you both down if I have to. Go in every men's room in the whole town. And when I find you, she means it, don't she? Hamburger whispered. Let's go get the food and then start driving west. I'm tired of this cold, wet weather anyway, Beer said. That was 214, 215, and here comes 216. We can go up to that grocery store and put it on my mama's ticket. I ain't taking it up there, are you? Hamburger said. Hell no, I reckon we can use a fishing pole, open up the door, and push the food through there. I ain't about to go in that place. Y'all turn me loose, and I'll give you both each $1,000, she yelled. That's a lot of money, Hamburger said. She'll kill us. We won't ever get the bit of that money, Beer told him. I won't harm a hair on your head. You just walk in here, undo this shackle, and I'll go to the bank and get each of you $1,000. Then you can leave, and I'll take care of Brad. Kathy waited, but neither of them said another word. They disappeared like two shadows into the foggy afternoon. She heard a thump and a swearing as they got into the boat. She was cold, angry, and she couldn't quit shaking, even though those blankets looked like something a bag lady wouldn't even touch on dumpster diving expedition. She wrapped one around her shoulder and sat down on the Indian-style floor in front of her. If they came back, she fully intended to jerk them into the shackle and shake the keys to the shackle of their pockets. The wind picked up and blew a rain right through the holy screen wire, and she scrambled back toward the bed. She couldn't afford to get any wetter. If she caught pneumonia, she'd die right there in the God-forsaken place. She yanked and pulled the bolt again where she might with all her might, but it wouldn't give in. She looked around for a wire or hairpin, anything to use the pick or ankle on the ankle shackle. She snarled at the idea of sitting on the tattered mattress, but it was too dry, so she fell back on it and stared at the ceiling. Brad was insane. She found it out after they were engaged, but this was even beyond what she thought. How in the hell did he ever figure that he could talk her into going back into him just because he rescued her? That man was certifiably goofy. They worked together, fallen in love with each other, moved in together, and they were going to get married. Then all they had, their first big argument. He threw her the first punch and caught her on the lower jaw with his fist, jerked his belt out before she had time to catch her breath, and began to swing. She curled up on a ball on the floor for about 60 seconds and then came up like a tornado out of the sunny Texas sky and fought back. After she kicked him in the crotch and boxed both of their ears until they rang out like the out-of-tune cowbells he took out for the front door, his belt flapping in the wind behind him. She moved to Mingus and thought it was all over until she looked up one night and there he was in the honky-tonk. Bless Billy Bob Walker's heart, he'd told Brad that he and Kathy were married. She felt a movement on the bed and looked to the right. A rat size of a house cat eyed her hungrily. She glared at him and bounced once, but he didn't move. You got a choice. You can attack me and die, or you can slither away with your pride and skin till it's attacked, she told him. The rat licked his paws and washed his face, glanced over every few seconds to see if he'd scared her, or into a screaming hunk of flesh blood. When she glared back and growled, he turned and tail and took time about jumping off the bed and disappeared through a hole in the floor. And that was 2:16, 2:17. Here's 2:18, 2:19, and that's it for tonight's reading. Okay, let's see here. That's when the tears welled up and spilled down her cheekbones. She hated roaches, rats, and mice. If Oscar Dunrow brought food, she'd have to stay awake to protect it, or a rat would come back with an army of his friends. She'd also have to be very careful not to cut herself, because if a rat smelled blood, it wouldn't be so easily scared away. What in the hell am I going to do? She whispered. Without a clock, she didn't know if it was 2 hours or 6 days past eternity when she heard them whispering outside the cabin. The front door, which was nothing but a flimsy framework with screen wire tacked to it, opened enough for a cardboard box to slide inside. That's all you get. Make it last or you'll go hungry, Hamburger shouted. You sure you don't want $1,000 each? It's a hell of a lot of money, more than Brad's going to give you. She hollered. Nah, we talked about it. Brad's our kin, shirt-tail cousin by marriage. We'd tick off our mama if we were to go against him. You make that last and don't die. If I die, they'll hunt you down like snakes and charge you with murder. I'm going to prick my finger and write your names on the wall. Oscar and Duro, is it? God almighty, she was awake. I told you one shot wasn't enough. She'll tell that sheriff, and he'll send us down forever. I won't never get to go deer hunting again. Well, I expect we best be on our way to Las Vegas, hadn't we? They surely got deer hunting somewhere out there. If they ain't, we can hunt wherever they got. I always wanted to hunt one of those big rabbits like I seen on them postcards. Goodbye, Hamburger yelled. And that is where we leave you tonight. Yes, she was kidnapped. Will she be found? Will Travis find her? Or will he go to Alaska? Only one way to find out. You gotta stay tuned for tomorrow's reading.